everybody, and welcome to this week's AEW Dynamite review show here on the unofficial WWE podcast. Today is Thursday, December 16th, 2021, and we are talking about last night's AEW Dynamite. Winter is coming. Winter has came. Winter has already come. Winter has come to us already. We are talking about Winter is Coming from last night that had only 4 matches and a few other little things going on the show itself, but we have a whole lot to get into. First and foremost, guys, before I play the intro, before we talk about any of this Patreon plug-in stuff, before we get into anything, I owe you an explanation because all you're hearing right now is my voice. And yes, last week I made a tentative promise of the Ashley Man. However, our schedules just didn't end up working out today. But we're going to have her back on another point. And you can also go check out her own podcast, by the way. Quick side note, if you're a wrestling fan, if you love listening to Ashley Man's voice here on this show, you can check out her own podcast. Just search the name Kick Ash. That is Kickaash. Get it? Get it? Because I did. Kick Ash Podcast. I assume wherever you get your podcasts from. So yes, if you do like listening to Ashley Mann's voice, if you were just jonesing for it, if you were expecting it on this show, you came on here, you're disappointed to just hear my voice, you can go listen to her on that podcast, Kick Ash, where she's talking about wrestling as well. And we'll try to get her on here at another point and definitely to talk about another episode of Dynamite. However, the show must go on, so we are going to get into last night's 4 matches, a couple things here and there, the good, the bad, the ugly, an hour-long championship match to open the show right after this.
You, Cowboy! Sammy!
I've always been the baddest on the block.
I came to AEW to dominate.
Come on, Jeff Perry!
Nobody is going to take this away from me. This is mine once again.
Alright, you guys, like I said, we have a whole show to get into with an hour-long match to kick us off tonight. However, before we get into last night's Dynamite, I'm going to do the quick usual plugs of Patreon, which is only $1 a month, and you get all of these shows ad-free. Just go to patreon.com/WWE Podcast, or you can just download the Patreon app and search the WWE Podcast, and we are on there. Again, all these shows, $1 a month. Totally ad-free. You get this show, you get an NXT review with Zach Smith, you get Anthony DeMarco's Rivalries, you get a couple exclusive shows, including Nostalgia, and, what is the other great show that we have with Anthony DeMarco and Matt? What If? You get the Raw review, you get the SmackDown review with Michael Ritter, you get the Weekend review, all of this stuff. You get the news briefs with Amanda, you get all of it ad-free for $1 a month, or you can subscribe on Apple. If Patreon is just not your thing, on Apple for $2.99, and you can get all of these shows ad-free as well. So, those are the plugs. That's the plugged. We're all plugged in now. Let's move on to the show, because we got a whole lot to get into, and yes, like I said, sadly, it is just me this week. No Ashley Man, another time. However, the show must go on, as I said in the intro, so let's not waste any more time, and let's just start talking about that hour-long match, the longest match in Dynamite history, the longest match in AEW history, Hangman Page versus Bryan Danielson. And guys, we're not going to cover every awesome thing that happened in this match. I'm not even going to try to give you guys some kind of recap. But there were a few spots I did want to touch on, so we are going to stop along the way there. However, guys, for the most part, this match, I mean, these guys did an amazing job of building and building and building this match, and I don't really think it all, peaked at one point. I think this match peaked a couple times throughout it, and really, you could almost, break up this match into, 3 or 4 different matches within one match. I don't know if I'm making any sense there, but I found that they had little peaks, and I don't even want to call them valleys, because I feel like that would be an insult to what these guys were doing. I don't feel like this plateaued at any point. I felt like I was completely, I didn't look at my phone once, I didn't do any of that, I was completely, that's not true, because if you follow me on the Twitter, you saw me on the Twitter tweeting on the Twitter that I was right about the time limit draw. So I do want to throw that out, by the way, there too. I totally called that, but not that it matters at all because nobody really cares about that kind of stuff. So yes, I did call that. So I did look at my phone a couple times solely for that reason, as I solely, like, I think once we got around the 20-minute mark, I was like, oh, this might be a time limit draw. And then I was like, oh, wait, no, AEW matches are an hour long when they're championship matches, so it's not going to happen. And then I was like, maybe 30 minutes in, I was like, oh, you know what? Probably actually is going to happen. And here we were. So, as I was saying, though, this match, I feel like you could break up into a couple of 3 or 4 different matches because it had little peaks and then it kind of dipped back down for a brief moment and then it had another little peak and then it dipped back down. But throughout the entire match, guys, Bryan Danielson, he is like a little mustache twirling heel. Just doing the beginning of this match was so well crafted because it made it so, right, these guys could preserve their cardio, which, by the way, we needed to give a quick mention there, too. These guys went for an hour long, guys. I get winded when I go up the stairs. And I'm smoke-free. Almost a month or 2 in now. What's the date? Yeah, I'm a little over a month smoke-free, guys, and I still get winded going up the stairs. This is not a conversation about how out of shape I am, though. We are talking about how great Bryan Danielson and Hangman Page cardio is. As I speak, I know my gimmick is supposedly supposed to know everybody's ages, but I don't know these two guys' ages off the top of my head. So Bryan Danielson, I thought, is 40 years old. And if I remember correctly, Hangman Page is 32. So you feel like if you left this podcast and you didn't learn anything, you learned the ages of these two guys. So there you go. No, he's 30 years old. Okay. Either way, guys, this is a 30-year-old man and a 40-year-old man wrestling for an hour, and I know they say there is no way to prepare for the kind of cardio that you need to actually wrestle a match. You can't do, running, stairs, any of that stuff. It's not the same as the actual cardio that you get and your body gets used to when you're actually wrestling. Again, I'm not speaking from personal experience, but I'm speaking from what I've heard in interviews and from what a bunch of other wrestlers have said, that there's nothing like it. There's no way to prepare for the kind of cardio that you need for just a regular wrestling match. Nevertheless, 2 guys wrestling for an hour long. And so, real quick, I just wanted to credit that. That's something I feel like we overlook. I'm going to go on a whole tangent now here. Here we go. But I feel like we overlook how incredible the things, not just Dante Martin, but how incredible the things all of these professional wrestlers do. Even the most amateur professional wrestlers takes a bump, guys. And I don't know about you, but I don't like to fall down very often. And when I do, it hurts and I don't enjoy it. So these guys do that for a living, essentially. They bump for a living. And the fact that they're able to do that, let alone wrestle for an hour long and bump for an hour long, is something to just behold for a hot second there. So I just want to make sure I give these guys all the credit in the world because that is difficult. There's a lot of people like to poo-poo on the John Cena, Randy Orton Iron Man match from, I don't even know when that was, in the 2010s, I think. And yeah, I get it. It's not your most thrilling match. It's John Cena and Randy Orton wrestling for an hour, so I understand. However, it's still 2 guys wrestling for an hour. That takes a lot of cardio. I barely can stand up for an hour. So give these guys all the credit in the world. I feel like I exposed my lack of athleticism about 6 times in the last 5 minutes. So I'm going to move on down to what I wanted to talk about in the first place here. And that is Bryan Danielson and his brilliance. His brilliance in the beginning of this match. How he kind of wastes the clock. And this is how I was like, oh, they're going to go for a time limit draw here. But how he wastes the clock in such a wonderful heel way. And he goes and he pushes Hangman Page. And then he goes and hides in the ropes. And he's got that smile on his face where he's not like a chicken you-know-what heel. He's not trying to get out of it. Which is, as I'm saying that, I'm thinking about the times that Hangman Page challenged him and he didn't accept a match. But no, he's really, he still wants to wrestle and he still wants to kick this guy's head in and he still knows he's the best. So he's not like this Miz MJF kind of chicken you-know-what heel. He knows he's good. He just enjoys getting a rise out of people. And you could really see that with his smile, the great facials he had throughout the entire match, but really in the beginning of this match. And honestly, I feel like he didn't pick up the pace until way later on when they were outside the ring and until Hangman Page started to bleed, honestly. That is really when I felt like Bryan Danielson really started to show his aggression. for the most part, in the beginning of the match, in the first 20 or so minutes, I felt like he was really just he was really playing himself up, playing a really good arrogant heel, and being, again, it's hard when you can't swear on this podcast to come up with words besides prick all the time. I usually use the word prick, but he was really just being I'll use a Matt phrase. He was being a great D-bag during the first 20 or so minutes of this match. So I think I got to get my Thesaurus out again, guys, because, that is clearly, I can't come up with any other words, and I'm using the words I'm stealing words from, I'm stealing Matt phrases, so it's time to whip out the Thesaurus. But, so, yeah, there was I was started to take notes during this match, and I was like, I just want to enjoy this, what I'm watching right now. I just want to enjoy this as a wrestling fan. But there was a beautiful moonsault, right, from Hangman Page off the top to the outside, right? Perfectly executed. And then this motherfucker goes for the same thing twice afterwards. Very opposite. Usually you see it takes they go for a move once, they can't get it. They go for the move the second time, they can't get it, and the third time they get the move off. Whatever it is, it doesn't always have to be a moonsault. But yeah, I mean, the first one, obviously, that he actually did hit looked really, really beautiful, and then we'll talk about the other two, I think, later on. But I did want to mention that. I think, again, similar to what I just said a couple seconds ago, but talking about, the cardio and the impressiveness of what these guys do, that's like a blind backflip from a high height, and you are trusting this other person to just, make sure you don't kill yourself. It's really impressive when you really, dumb it down. I feel like we see such good wrestling so much. If you're anything like me, you watch so much wrestling on a weekly basis, you almost become numb to this stuff. And I like to make sure I try to remind myself, that's really incredible and really impressive and an incredible feat of athleticism. So I don't just become one. I don't ever want to become a greedy fan. There's definitely plenty of us out there that a lot of people get accused for being greedy fans, probably more than they should, but I'm going to go down another rabbit hole. We're just going to stick on the match. We already got an hour-long match to talk about here. Let's just stay focused here. The transitions in this match was the thing I wanted to talk about next, and this goes for throughout the entire hour, but specifically a couple specific ones I wanted to touch on, where Hangman Page goes for a lariat. Bryan Danielson wrestles him down to the mat so flawlessly, smoothly, precisely into an armbar. And he does it multiple times in the match too, but because this is an hour-long match, you kind of don't get sick of the repeated spot. And it's just so incredible. And there's so many other little spots like this. All of the counters in this match were so smooth and so incredible. Hangman Page goes for a Deadeye, somehow gets transitioned into a backslide, and then somehow Bryan Danielson gets him into an ankle lock. It was just it's like, how did we get here all of a sudden? We're just shut our eyes for a second, and then all of a sudden we got here, because it's just so effortless and so flawless with these guys. Specifically, Bryan Danielson, who is probably the greatest wrestler in the world right now, without a doubt, and someone you really aren't gonna... I don't know if we'll ever get another wrestler as just... I don't think we'll ever get another wrestler like Bryan Danielson. I will leave it at that. And the last counter I want to bring up that happened in this match that I just absolutely loved was the pop-up powerbomb, or off the... Bryan Danielson's doing the clothesline thing he does in the corner, where he does the three of them. And on the third one, I feel like all wrestlers should know this by now. Don't go for the third one. The three amigos, whatever it is. Don't go for the third suplex. Don't go for the third clothesline. Don't go for the third kick. It's always the one that gets countered. But Bryan Danielson's going for another clothesline or kick or whatever he does in the corner. Hangman Page pops up out of nowhere. Credit to Hangman as well in this match. I know I'm talking a lot about Bryan Danielson, but hits a pop-up powerbomb that just looks so brutal. So brutal. And, these guys did back body drops off the top rope in this match. There's a point where Hangman Page jumps from the top rope in the ring outside to go through the table, and that looked like a rough bump to take as well. Bryan targeting the arm most of the match, or towards the latter half of the match. Again, this was so long, but the latter half of the match was really, really rough to watch, but also so fun to watch. And obviously Hangman Page originally bleeding from when he gets pulled into the post. They really are driving it home that is a square post, guys. It is a square steel post. And if I'm really nitpicking on anything this match, and this is nothing the guys had any control over either, but Hangman Page, I'm going to point you guys back to Double or Nothing. The opening match of Double or Nothing. Originally, fans are back. Jacksonville. They're in Daly's place, and Hangman Page is going against Brian Cage. That's not confusing still to me. Hangman Page is wrestling Brian Cage in the opening match, and this, I think, happened the rough way. I don't think this was supposed to happen. But Page gets cut open, and he is just bleeding like a you-know-what. Is it like a government mule? Is that what JR says? And Brian Cage, I don't think this was a botch. I don't know exactly what happened. Nonetheless, Hangman Page is just bleeding like you-know-what. And I realized in that moment, Hangman Page made the list of my weird pro wrestling fan top list. Again, this is like only something I can speak on a pro wrestling podcast where maybe you guys won't think I'm a psychopath. You might still think I'm a psychopath, but my list of like the best bleeders, my mental list. I don't have a legitimate list. But like in best bleeders in pro wrestling. What am I talking about? If you think I'm a psychopath right now, let me just give me a chance to explain myself. Cody Rhodes. That blonde hair, when Cody Rhodes bleeds, he likes to bleed way too much. It's been a while, though, besides the Andrade match, but he had a little discipline for a little while. Dustin Rhodes is another great bleeder, because somehow Dustin Rhodes always bleeds every ounce of blood out of his body for some reason, in every match he ever bleeds in. CM Punk is a really good bleeder, too. Let me point you to Eddie Kingston versus CM Punk at Revolution. Great match. Again, CM Punk just looks... And last but not least, before I go into... There's so many other people that could be on this list, too, by the way. Britt Baker. I mean, she made an entire t-shirt, face, all of that stuff. She's on the intro of that face of her bleeding, There's a few wrestlers that are just really good bleeders, and Hangman Page is on that list. However, in this match... It didn't flow, guys. It didn't flow. And it wasn't like excessive amounts of, it wasn't like Dustin Rhodes at the original Double or Nothing kind of bleeding, which again, totally fine. Totally fine. I might be making that up. Is it All In? I think it's All In that Cody Rhodes and him had that match. Just the massacre, the bloody massacre of Dustin Rhodes. And that doesn't need to happen every match, but the way Bryan Danielson was beating up Hangman's head in this match, like just those strikes with the fists, the kicks, all of that stuff, you felt like he should have been bleeding a lot more. But for some reason, it wasn't a bloody night for Hangman. It wasn't an excessively bloody night for Hangman. Sometimes, I think Matt is the one who says this all the time, sometimes a little color goes a long way in these matches. So that's the one thing I can really pick on, because there was another great near fall off a tombstone, and nonetheless, you all know how it ends. If you don't, it's weird that you're listening to the show, but I don't give nearly as good enough of a recap that you should be listening to my voice before watching this show. But Page hits the Deadeye, and then the third Deadeye in the match, because he hits the Deadeye on the apron earlier, the Deadeye that he doesn't really get a full... I feel like Brian's head hits like the back of his leg, and I wish commentary said something about that. But again, by the way, just want to throw this out here, Taz on commentary, I literally makes every show, every Dynamite so much better. Obviously, we wish Jim Ross all the best in his recovery, all of his radiation treatments, I think is what he says he's going through. All of the best in his recovery. However, this has nothing to do with him as a person, by the way. I just am, subjectively, I just adore Taz on commentary. I think he's so good at what he does, and he adds just enough personality to it. So yes, Taz being on commentary throughout this entire show, but throughout this entire match, added so much to it as well. And I totally lost where I was going. Oh, the Deadeye. I wish they had mentioned something about that. That's why maybe Bryan Danielson kicked out, because he didn't really get all of it. So yes, Hangman Page hits the third Deadeye, and doesn't go for a cover for some reason. That a little bit funky, but whatever. You've got me in the moment. I'm like counting down. Come on, he's got 10 seconds. I'm literally like grabbing the couch. I'm like, come on, Hangman, just hit the move and pin him. Just hit the move and pin him. Hits the buckshot lariat and does not get to the cover in time. The match ends in a time limit draw. And I heard some people were on Twitter complaining. I don't care. If you were on Twitter complaining about this, I probably don't follow you. But I heard that there were some people on Twitter complaining about this. Some people online, period, complaining about this. Ridiculous. You heard the crowd chanting, give them 1 more minute or 1 more minute and 1 more minute, because they wanted to see. That was the appropriate response. That's how I felt. Give them 1 more minute. But I wasn't mad about, I wasn't legitimately mad as a fan. I was mad because I wanted Hangman to win. But I wasn't like, oh, that was a stupid booking decision. They can't commit to a finish. Like, no. This was such a good idea. Of course, you have the guy who beat Kenny Omega, and then you have the guy who went to a 30-minute draw with Kenny Omega. It makes sense why Bryan Danielson would take Hangman Page to a time limit draw, an hour long match. I think Bryan Danielson is now 13-0-2. I think he's the only person with 2 draws in AEW. And definitely the only person who's had this many draws close together. But I really, really like the decision because they're going to run this back. And I'm super excited to watch them run it back. I wonder if they will step it up at all. That's an idea. I don't want to see another hour-long Hangman Bryan Danielson match. So I don't know what they're going to do to change it up next time, whether it's just the tone or the vibe of the entire match as a whole. Maybe Bryan does something that pushes Hangman too far. I don't know. I was actually also hoping to see where Bryan might go to here next. I don't go from here next. I was excited to see where Bryan would go from here next. More just out of curiosity, but I hope they don't run this back right away. I hope they come back to this later on. Bryan Danielson got a shot. I know it sucks, but he didn't win. A draw is not a loss, but it's still not a win. So if you don't win, you lose, technically, in my book, is the way I look at it, because he didn't win the title. So realistically, I hope they kind of come back to this later on, and they give Bryan Danielson something new to do for a little while, and maybe we come back around to this at another point. I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think we're going to get the next match sooner rather than later, but I could be wrong. I'm usually wrong. I'm wrong about a lot of things. Just ask anybody ever who's ever met me ever. I'm wrong about a lot of stuff, but that's kind of my hope, because I want to cool off with this feud and cool off with this match, and I want them to do it round 2. That's what she said. I want them to do it round 2 and come back around to it, and I want it to be even better the next time. Not necessarily the match I'm talking about, but the actual feud. I feel like there are a lot of points in this feud that they could do better. Like, again, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, but I definitely think with these 2 guys, they could do better, and they will want to do better. And I would like to see in a year's time, maybe, 9 months' time, we come back around to this. And maybe after the ratings have reset, they do at the end of every year. And we do better the next time. Somehow, some way, right? We manage to just do better with the storyline the next time. I don't know what that looks like. I'm not the booker. That's not my job, I guess. But nevertheless, I'm looking forward to it. I think I got my fix for Bryan Danielson, Hangman Page right now. Funny enough, I in that moment I wanted to see one more minute, but right now, as I've digested it, it's Thursday now. I've watched the show last night. I'm okay. I can take a little time to see where Hangman goes next. I want more Hangman on my TV. I feel like this Bryan Danielson, like I said, I didn't not enjoy the feud, but I think I was expecting a lot more from it in the build-up. And we were watching the heel wrestle every week, but we weren't getting to see the babyface wrestle on Dynamite at all. So I'm excited to see what's next for Hangman if it's not Bryan Danielson. Maybe they bring Brian Cage back and they run back that 3rd time. Maybe I'm trying to think about who is next up in the rankings. And as I'm looking at this, I don't think any of these guys really make sense, considering Kenny Omega is number 2 in the rankings. Scorpio Sky is number 3, and I think Scorpio Sky is going for Sammy Guevara's TNT title. Jungle Boy is number 4, and I don't think they're going to run that back yet. That match doesn't make a lot of sense, but I wouldn't complain. I'd love to see that. And then Miro is number 5, but I think we are still holding off on Miro as he is in purgatory or something. I don't know what's going on with Miro. But yeah, so either way, I'm excited to see what they do next with Hangman before the rankings reset. I think they're perfect timing for the rankings to reset as well. For the women, though, just as I'm looking right now, kind of sucks for Jade Cargill, who's 20-0, to have the rankings reset, and for Thunder Rosa as well, who's 32-3. But, all right, let's move on. Let's start talking about the next match on this show, because there was a lot else that happened here. But yes, this went from like 8:05 to 9:05, guys. This is going to be something that goes down in the history books in AEW, and deservedly so. They did a DDT on the concrete to Hangman Page. Again, this is why I was just hoping for more blood. I was just bloodthirsty for some reason that last night, guys. I don't know. I can't explain it. But they did a DDT on the concrete during the commercial break, the picture-in-picture commercial break. The last thing I'll say, though, actually, before I move on, is I don't know about you guys, but the commercial breaks kind of kill it for me. I just try to pay attention during the picture-in-picture, but like it's all of a sudden I'm looking at Sonic, this amazing Sonic commercial, and I was just thinking about, I don't know if you guys have ever been to Sonic. If you haven't been to Sonic, go to Sonic, but we don't have one that's close enough here. So like when we go to Sonic, we have to like take a little bit of a hike. But for that cherry limeade soda drink thing that they do, it's so worth it. It is so worth it, guys. Screw the food. That drink is so good. So if you've never been to Sonic, go to Sonic and get that cherry lemonade limeade thing, whatever it's called. And you can just tell Mimi from the WWE podcast sent you, and they will give you no discount because they will look at you like you're crazy. All right, moving on now. Away from Sonic. Now I just like got myself totally dazed out from that. But we had the Super Click and Bobby Fish in the back talking about the best friends feud. And they proposed a match on Rampage. They went after Sue here. They went after Sue, guys, and that messed me up. You don't go after Sue and her minivan. But they said they have a promise for Rampage. No, they have a promise for Christmas. Excuse me. They have a promise for Christmas. The Christmas Dynamite, the Holiday Dynamite, that is next week. But yes, we are getting some 8-man tag team match on I don't know. I don't care about this feud. And honestly, I want to talk about Matt Sydal versus Wardlow, because Wardlow essentially just powerbombed Matt Sydal 3 times and then pinned him, obviously. But Matt Sydal got a little bit more offense. And I want to say Matt Sydal still, in the little flurries that he had, looked really good. Matt Sydal is such a good hand to have in your locker room. I think he's just such a talented guy, and he's good in any spot you give him, and he's like credible enough where you believe like this is still, you can do this with him, but then you can also put him in that match against CM Punk. He's kind of Teflon at this point. So, like I said, Matt Sydal, just a really good hand, and I want to give him credit because now we're just going to talk about Wardlow and the beast that is Wardlow. Comes down, like I said, gives 3 power bombs. Sean Spears gets on the microphone, tries to tell him to stop, tries to tell him to just go for the pin. They don't work by the hour. Essentially, he's just trying to be a heel because the crowd just wants to see Wardlow power bomb Matt Sydal over and over and over and over again. And then Sean Spears, like I said, tells him that he doesn't work by the hour, and then just starts hitting Matt Sydal with a bunch of chair shots. Then all of a sudden his phone rings, and what do you know? It is MJF calling him, and he informs him that Wardlow has to go pick up some champagne for MJF to celebrate what is, spoiler alert, his victory in the Diamond Ring, I'm gonna do it again this week, guys. The Dynamite Diamond Ring Battle Royale Finals match, the main event. He's talking about the main event. And then we get a video package between Penelope Ford and Ty Conti. Because apparently that feud's still going on, guys. I don't know. I don't know. I thought that feud was in purgatory with Miro, but I guess I was wrong. All right, we get a Malachi Black video package where he starts talking about a lot of stuff, which is urge to have violence, and I don't know. Malachi Black starts talking, and at this point I kind of tune out, and this is sad because he was so over when he first debuted, and then he did whatever he did with Cody Rhodes, and now I kind of couldn't care less. However, he talks about that, he said something about a king, and from what I've heard, we are getting a Ring of Honor debut soon in AEW, maybe as soon as next week, obviously, to go against the Varsity Blondes, and give Malachi Black a tag team partner that isn't Andrade, and makes some kind of sense. I think it's Brody King, if I'm correct. I'm not a giant, I don't know enough about Ring of Honor, but if I remember the name correctly, it was Brody King, and a lot of hype behind him, so this could be, maybe this gives Malachi Black some more oomph that he needed after he somehow lost it, inexplicably with the feud of Cody Rhodes and with Andrade and whatever, Pac, and I don't even know what to call that. I don't even know what it was, guys. But let's talk about stuff that I did know what it was, because we had Hikaru Shida versus Serena Deeb, and this was the match I was looking forward to most coming into this show last night. I know, weird, we have an AEW World Heavyweight Championship match, and I am looking forward to Serena Deeb most, but that shows you how much I just have a spot in my heart for Serena Deeb and what she does in that ring. And this match did not disappoint. I'm happy that they got a good amount of time. I was scared that they weren't after that hour-long opener, but they managed. They had minimal backstage stuff, and this match had a lot to live up to because those first 2 matches were really good. And I don't know if it was the best out of the 3. I think probably the second one was my favorite, but this was still a great match. Like I wouldn't give it the A+ rating, but it was still a great match. And I mean, it started off as a brawl. It was different too. It was definitely different than the other 2. And when you wrestle somebody so much within a short period of time, you have this like uphill battle of trying to wrestle differently and giving a different style of a match than we've already seen. And this is it's not a failure, but I'm going to give you an example of Christian Cage versus Kenny Omega, right? We got the match, the first ever match on Rampage, and it was for the Impact World title. That match rocked. It was awesome. Like a really good match, right? And then when they ran it back at All Out, the main event of All Out, I thought the match on Rampage was better. And so, like, it's those little situations where it's difficult. You're at an uphill battle already if we've already seen the match. And I thought these women, like I said, were already in an uphill battle. If not, they're already in the quarter hour. We already saw an hour-long match. I think this match definitely did not benefit from being on a show with a Bryan Danielson hour-long match. I think when you put Serena Deeb and Bryan Danielson wrestle very similarly, they wrestle the opposite of differently. And when you have an hour long of Bryan Danielson, you're not necessarily jonesing for 12 minutes of Serena Deeb. I am, but a normal person probably isn't. So these guys started off, like I said, trying to wrestle a little bit differently than the other two. Started off as a brawl, and Serena Deeb talked about how this was just going to be a fight this time. However, because it's Serena Deeb, right, they end up grappling. I will say, though, that this had a little bit more of like a less, I think they knew what they were up against too with that hour-long match with Bryan Danielson, because this was a little bit less of like a grapple back and forth transition-y match like you saw in the first hour of the show and the other two matches that they've had before. And this did have a little bit, I don't want to use the word sloppy because that's not what I mean, but it had a little bit more, not character, what's the word I'm looking for? It had a little bit, I need my thesaurus. It had a little bit more desperation, a little bit more fire in it. Like it wasn't like a smooth pro wrestling match. It kind of just had a little bit more grit. Oh God, I feel like Edge. It had a lot more grit to it. And towards the end of the match, there's a great Falcon Arrow counter off of, again, I think it was Serena Deeb going for a third suplex, if I remember correctly. It was a third neck breaker. Oh my God, those neck breakers look so good. Again, Serena Deeb, just the little things that she puts in, all the little moves and movements she does in the ring. There's nobody better in a women's division anywhere in the world right now. And you are listening to the biggest Charlotte Flair fan of all time. I feel like I'm the only one left as well. And there's no one better than Serena Deeb right now. But yes, Sheeta counters the third one, and they end up moving over to the turnbuckle. I don't know who grabbed I assume it was Deeb. I missed that part. But Deeb grabs the turnbuckle pad, exposes it. Somehow Sheeta pushes her into it, gets a jackknife cover, gets the 1, 2, 3. So supposedly we protect Deeb, and Sheeta gets the win. But I don't know. I think I would have just like a definitive ending to this match. When it's third match of a feud, I'd rather just see one person win over the other, and I don't think either woman, I think actually this is the correct thing. As much of a fan of Serena Deeb as I am, I think Serena Deeb can recover a lot better than Sheeta would be able to from this loss. But I don't know. I don't think you needed to protect Serena Deeb with that exposed turnbuckle if that was the intention. I think you could have just had Sheeta go over clean. And let's move on to the main event, guys, which was Dante Martin versus MJF. And I am going to have some weird takes about this match. I didn't see a lot of stuff online about this match. And honestly, when you watch Dante Martin do all this fun flippy-dippy stuff, it's really hard to have any other opinions than, wow, this guy is really incredible. Look at him do all these flippy-dippy things. And I'm not going to try to recap all of them, but I mean, he did all four sides of the ring and jumping out to the ring. That was incredible. That last one's scary as hell. That shooting star press where he overshot it was scary as all hell, but he was fine, it seemed. But it almost felt like MJF was wrestling slower, and not in a good way, in like a methodical. It just like this match felt very like every bad version. If you guys have ever seen Will Ospreay versus Ricochet, right? Like every bad version of that match, it felt very choreographed. It felt very like they were in a performance center. They were in training. They were in developmental. Like the way they were throwing fake punches at each other, and the way, like, oh my God, by the way, Dante Martin's work punches, he's got to, no pun intended, work on those. But those are so bad in the corner, like just not even close. But yeah, the way they were throwing, like, when you throw a fist at somebody or a clothesline and the person is supposed to duck out of the way, throw the fist or throw the clothesline. and expect your opponent to duck out of the way. Otherwise, it looks really bad, and it looks like that thing that John Cena does before he does the five-knuckle shuffle. You guys know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. And I felt like that was a good personification of essentially this entire match. It felt like it was definitely a showcase for Dante Martin, but it wasn't a good match. It just wasn't a good match. I thought the actual technical, back and forth between these two wasn't good, and it was masked by a lot of fun flippy dippy stuff, but I don't know, guys. We're at a point in time in 2021, almost 2022. I can go watch flippy dippy stuff wherever I want. I like to see a good story told in the match. I like to see good fundamentals. Funny enough, right? I don't mean to sound I sound like an old white man on this podcast, but I'm looking for good fundamentals in my wrestling matches. But really, I don't know why I went southern there too, but I'm looking for good fundamentals, and this match lacked it. It was like trying to have, I always go to a food analogy. It was like trying to have cake and sprinkles, but all you did was put sprinkles down and there was no cake on it. If you don't have the cake, you don't have anything to put sprinkles on. I don't know why I went with cake and not ice cream, but I just think about ice cream cake. And I really want some ice cream cake right now. However, after the match, we had Sting and Darby Allin, or not Sting and Darby Allin, we had FTR come out. I was like, oh my God, the Pinnacle. Nobody said anything about the Pinnacle. I just want to throw that out there. I think the Pinnacle is they're just going to pretend like that never happened. But then the lights go dark, and I don't know about you guys, but Tony Khan kept talking about surprises and that there was going to be a surprise. And, he was doing his Tony Khan thing on these interviews lately. And the lights go dark, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I was expecting Kyle O'Reilly. And I'm going to be, I don't know why that would work, but it just was for some reason. And I wasn't going to be excited about it because I'm not a Kyle O'Reilly fan. He just doesn't do it for me. But nobody. It was Sting and Darby Allin. And again, Sting and Darby Allin are over enough to get a pop for that. But I think I and everybody else, I could be wrong. You guys tell me, but I was expecting something. Not a current roster, I was expecting some kind of debut. It was Winter is Coming. Last year we had Sting debut, and we had Tony Khan talking on all these interviews that there was going to be surprises and more surprises to come. And it was just Sting and Darby Allin. However, I will accept it because it led to the fact that we had CM Punk, Darby Allin, and CM Punk comes out, by the way. We had CM Punk's Darby Allin and Sting, or we're getting CM Punk, Darby Allin, and Sting. They're going back to that. Again, that relationship's still there whenever you think AEW drops something. Not whenever, because, again, where's the Pinnacle? But we're going to get MJF, FTR versus Darby Allin and Sting and CM Punk. And I'm looking forward to that match. It felt a little bit weird because they were like, Tony Khan's going to announce a match at the end of the show. And then this happened. And then they had the match graphic right away. There were a lot of plot holes to all of this, guys. A lot of plot holes. I thought we were going to hear something about the Owen Hart tournament. I don't know. But nonetheless, it's still exciting to look forward to. And, I don't know about you guys, like when we are watching Sting, Darby Allin, and CM Punk versus MJF and FTR, I'm probably not going to be thinking so much about all the plot holes that led up to it versus how incredible the fact is that it's 2021 and this is the match that I'm seeing. So, good stuff to look forward to. I'm going to go try to get myself some ice cream cake. And overall, guys, I really, really, really enjoyed this Dynamite. I thought the main event wasn't great, and we need to figure out what we're doing with, is the opening match the more important part than the main event? I understand why they do that because the ad break thing, but still I think that needs to be a little bit more fleshed out because I don't think the main event was a good match at all, and I think it was the shortest match on the card besides Wardlow, I guess. So, and Matt Sydal was in that match as well. All right, guys, I'm gonna go see if I can find myself some ice cream cake. You all have a wonderful rest of your week. I will talk to you guys next time on the Dynamite Review Show. Tweet me on the Twitter at Mimi Burris. Let me know your thoughts. What did you think of the not the main event, because it wasn't the main event. It was the first match of the night. What did you think about the hour-long match for the championship between Bryan Danielson and Hangman Page? What did you think about this weird... Were you expecting something different when the lights went out? Because suddenly everybody's using Aleister Black's trick. I don't know. But, and with all that being said, guys, like I said, have a great rest of your week, and I will talk to you next time.